Well, I think we got better. Coming out of the Tennessee game, it felt like our defense wasn't connected at the level it needed to be, and I thought that was much improved against Ohio. We wanted to put spend a lot of time protecting the paint and getting better at protecting the paint and helping each other and, helping the helper and things like that. So I thought our connection defensively was better. We still got to shore up some transition defense. And part of that, obviously, is taking care of the ball, which we were just okay, I felt like, in both of those. And so that's another area offensively we're working on. I think I said this, our offensive chemistry is ahead of our defensive chemistry, and we're working every single day to speed up that process on the defensive side.
You mentioned helping the helper and protecting the paint in that game. Threes that you got at times seem like probably don't want to give up maybe as many open ones as you did. Was that a result? I don't know how much you schemed in an exhibition. Take this guy away, that guy away, what you're specifically working on. But some of their three-point shooting were a little bit like, schematically, we're just working on this thing. And if we give up more threes than normal,
I think we don't want to give up as many threes, as we did. I do think we forced them into some tough ones. The ones that, for me, that we watched and talked about were where maybe we had three guys stop penetration instead of what really should have been one. So I think we overhelped at times in that game and put ourselves in rotation more than we had to, whereas if we would have followed through on some of the schemes and designs of our help where one guy goes and that guy kind of takes his and it flows from there. We didn't quite execute that as well, but our intent to help each other and protect the paint was much better.
Is that common for an exhibition? Like you're saying, like we get three guys helping, only one should. Is that like this is our first time under the lights at home, and we want to make an impression? So I might do a little, maybe you do too much and you take yourself out of what you're supposed to do. Is that?
I think some of it is like our guys play really hard, and sometimes. What we've talked a lot about is communication and how communication is a key to prevent that from happening. Not, like our awareness is getting better. I thought our awareness to stop the ball, to help each other was better. We kind of went off script a little bit because maybe we didn't communicate who was that first line of help, and then we ended up getting too many guys there. So that last part for us and part of that defensive chemistry is the communication piece. Again, I think we've gotten consistently better. It's something we've talked about since June, and that's, it's one of the hardest things, I think, to build with a new team. So our guys are buying in, working hard to develop that, and we're seeing improvement daily.
Health-wise, where do you stand going in? Anything we need to be aware of?
I think we'll have some more information here probably Saturday and leading into Sunday. I think Colin is still on his, kind of, I guess, progression and plan to being full go. We were able to get him in the exhibition game some, which was good. Outside of some bumps and bruises, Josh is a separate deal. Outside of some bumps and bruises from the preseason, we're expecting to be at full capacity come Monday.
What are you most looking forward to seeing that maybe doesn't show up in scrimmages or exhibition or things like that? It's a real game. Everyone knows it counts. Are there a couple things that you'll be keeping an eye on?
I'm really interested to see, how we handle those pressure and special situations. We practice them a lot, right? But and we even talk about when we're in those, trying to put yourself mentally into a game situation, put yourself mentally into a crowded arena with a lot of noise. And, I think how we handle end of half execution, how we handle end of game execution, we've spent a ton of time working on it. And I think we got a lot of confidence in our ability, but until you kind of put the game pressure on, you just fully don't know. And I think we're ready for those moments, but we need that game pressure now to get a sense of that.
As a player yourself, and then having worked with these guys, how good are they? Or how difficult is that to kind of put yourself in that? And how do you see your guys having done that? Especially the returning guys who have been in those situations where it's a new group.
Well, I think, from when we started doing some of these, even back in the summer, in early summer, to now, we've improved significantly. I think our guys are playing with a lot of confidence, and to some degree, we're limiting the coaching in practice to create an environment where our guy, like maybe we don't have a timeout now. And our guys got to communicate on the court to get together, get connected, to execute both offensively and defensively. That's where I think our collective experience being so much higher this year has been helpful. I think our leadership and how that's, been established with multiple guys having a voice has been helpful. I'm really excited, about the opportunities that we know are coming in those areas to be able to show the hard work we've put in to be great at them.
That concept of less coaching and let them figure some of that stuff out on the fly. When you're developing things as a coach and ideas, where did that idea come from?
Well, I think you're trying to prepare for every scenario, right? I mean, I think throughout the course of our first year, I'm going to try to save some timeouts, at least one or two for the end of the game. I think now we're going to do an element of that for a challenge. And so, hey, if we have to use a challenge timeout, we might not have one right in the final 45 seconds. So how do we play that? And what if we're on the road and it's really hard to hear? What's our kind of chain of communication look like? So simulating that, adversity, I think, is important, and you want to prepare for every scenario you can think of. And I feel like we've done a good job of that. And our guys, again, because of that collective experience we have stepped up and are handling it well.
Challenge this year, the coach challenge, like, what have you, I guess, how have you prepared to use that? What are, if you looked at how the NBA coaches use it, like, what have you studied to make sure that you have the plan you think to make sure you're using that for your team?
Yeah, I've talked to officials, and we've talked to officials at both of our exhibitions, and we've had officials in practice and kind of talked to them. I think when you go back and look since the review came into play, the most significant change has been that play where a guy has two hands on the ball and it gets knocked out of his hands. Forever, that was an automatic call. The guy who had two hands on it would keep it, right? What we saw when the review came in is the ball rolled off his fingertip last. So traditionally, when that would have been an easy call to go the other way, I think you got to anticipate challenging in that setting, because that's one. I think basket interference, if it's called, you have a chance to challenge that, and depending on the situation, you may challenge, at the hopes that you're right. It'll be hard to get that bang play correct, but knowing you may use the timeout anyway, you may challenge to be able to huddle your team up in that setting and at the chance of getting that play reversed, but knowing you were going to call a timeout anyway. So I think thinking through that situation has been one, and then the block charge and that line is another one. So it tried to play out right every scenario possible, and we've practiced a little bit. Like I unofficially challenged a play in a scrimmage, and we didn't stop and go to the monitor and do all that. We just said, hey, play on. But, and the ref came back and they looked at it later and was like, you would have got that challenge correct. It was a similar play. Kind of guy went for a rebound, got tipped, and it looked like it went off his hand, and they said it didn't. So, well, like, yeah, -1 for -1, since those don't count, I guess. But I think those, I've thought through this a lot, talked to some other coaches, and I think the NBA game's a little bit different, but there's certainly strategy as to when you use them. I think you want to save some for the end of the game, certainly. We'll have iPads, but I think the time you get to make that decision, it's still yet to be seen if you have that, that, like in our exhibition game, I just, for lack of, getting practice, I look back at our bench and just, I wouldn't have actually challenged, but I was like, hey, if I would have challenged us, and I'm looking at our guy with the iPad, and they didn't have it before, I would have had to make that decision before he had a chance to see it. So I think some of the technology aspect's going to have to play out here. And I don't know that, we're going to be able to trust an iPad to make every decision. Some of it's going to have to be with our kind of instinct and eye on the fly.
I want to ask, is it simplistic to look at the makeup of your team and your proposed starting lineup, at least the one you had the other day against Ohio, and just say this team will be better because you still have the same production from Thornton, Mobley, and Royal, but last year you struggled getting a lot out of the 4 and 5 positions, and you saw what those guys produced, is it simplistic enough to say you're going to be a better team because you're going to have increased production at 4 and 5 this year?
I mean, I think on paper that makes a lot of sense, but we all know, right? The game by game is going to be so different. I think we feel confident that our front court is going to be productive, and really I think all 4 of those guys. I'd include Yvonne and Amari, Brandon, and Tilly all in that equation, and they have been productive as a unit in both the Tennessee scrimmage and the Ohio exhibition. So, that certainly is exciting for us. I think it provides us an ability again to play faster, to play with more space on the floor, which should open up opportunities for our perimeter players as well. Opportunities to drive, harder to maybe commit to our perimeter players than it was in the past. So it should balance, I think, yes, will make us a harder guard and should help us be more productive. And I think we can have great balance this year.
Has your opinion of this team drastically changed since you started practice, or is this team coming together the way that you had hoped and figured it would? Just maybe gauge that level, I suppose, as you go into the first game.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think if we could rewind and say, okay, we would like to be here going into our first game, I think we've met that and in some areas exceeded it. I think it's really interesting when you go into a scrimmage and you go into an exhibition game. I was really curious to see if the pace we wanted to play at, our ability to move the ball, the spacing we wanted, how that would translate against people who aren't used to playing against it every single day, and so and it's held up really well. We still got to take care of the ball better. We still got to rebound. We still, there's still things, the margins within the game that we gotta continue to get better at, and I think we have. So I think we're further along, than maybe I even thought we could be at this point in time. But it still boils down to game night. We're going to prepare well. This team prepared, like we practiced preparing for Ohio and just the cadence of things and guys watching film. And so we didn't cover a lot on the court, but, just tried to practice preparing in that cadence, and our guys handled that really well. There's a high-level care factor. There's a high-level connection. All of that stuff has been proven to be, I think, advanced. So, we're excited for game day, but make no mistake, starting on Monday, we have to, we got to bring our best on game day. And I think that's going to continue to be a challenge every single game throughout this season without challenging our schedulers.
Just one last question. The Indy team, I don't know if they played a scrimmage or exhibition against anybody, if it was televised or you had tape or whatever, but just what you have on them, what do you see out of them, and I don't know if you know who they played, how did they do and all that.
Well, I think because of their coach and his track record that there's a certain style that they're going to play. It's going to be up tempo. It's going to be physical. They're going to trap, and they're like his teams have. Since he's been a head coach, they're going to try and score a ton of points. So we're anticipating a fast-paced, physical game. And, there's no reason to believe that what he's been able to do, so far in his career isn't going to be able to carry over. We think it will. I think they're primed to have a good season this year, and it's absolutely a tough challenge, for us to start off our season. We're anticipating getting their absolute best shot, and so we got to bring our absolute best as well.
I was just going to say, speaking of that, two-part question. Top players for IU Indy, and also when you run up against a coach that's not really from Division I, do you go back and get tapes from, I'm trying to say, from other people that might know his style?
Yeah, we do. I think we went back, watched a ton of games from last year and even in the past. I think as far as the makeup of their team, they're the sum of their parts is really good. And they have, because of the pace and number of possessions, they have really multiple guys. You just got to anticipate, I think, multiple guys being able to be really productive on any given night. The guys that came with him, I think, certainly have a familiarity with what they're doing, and you expect them to be impactful. But, we're not like targeting on just one or two guys. Like we're getting ready for everybody because I think they're the sum of their parts. When you look at their track record, it's been really impressive. And certainly some of the guys who came with them, you expect to be ready to operate. And so presents a tough challenge, certainly.
I'm trying to jog my memory here. When you were at Valpo, did you guys ever play in the Horizon League, or was that mid-con?
We did. We played in the Horizon League. Yep. I played in the mid-con and the Horizon League and coached in the Horizon League.
I remember seeing you, and I also first met you when you were in Upper Sandusky because I used to work at the station up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Two brothers up there. You know.
You cross paths with Colin at all, like high school wise, or growing up at all?
Not a ton. I mean, we don't really know each other like that. But I think being in the area, you got a great deal of respect for his old school and what they've done, how they played. Obviously, that type of tempo and play style is near and dear to my heart with the way I grew up. So tons of respect for sure.
You mentioned that his status is different than everyone else right now. I think you had said to him that you're hoping by the end of October to have closer to a timeline on him. Is there an update on just kind of where he is in his progression, when you might know more?
Yeah, I think he's moving, and that's obviously that was the big next step. Was he's up and he's moving and he's able to he's doing strength training and stuff now. So I think for us a lot of it is going to be when he's full go on the court, and after that how long that takes to be game ready is going to be the ultimate factor. So there's no real update yet, but I jumped the gun a little bit in thinking that we were going to have answers by this time, but I think the long term nothing's changed. It's just as far as getting a firm answer is maybe going to take a little bit longer than I anticipated. Not that there's been any hiccup or anything other than I'm a basketball coach and probably just got a little excited and anticipated a little too quickly there.
I'm not sure if you believe in redshirting anymore. Keep changing. Seems like Miles last got off the bench. Is that something you would entertain? Is that a possibility for him?
Yeah, it's something we even talked about, when we were recruiting him, that was a possibility. We're sitting down and having a conversation with him and his family prior to Monday's game. We've had some of those preliminary conversations, but we've been transparent back and forth since recruiting him that could be a possibility, and that'll be a joint decision between us, him, his family, but we've been able to communicate through that really well.
Especially with the new guys, just like now you've gone through scrimmage exhibition games. How do you feel like that is 2 days before?
I think it's really good, and I mean it when I think our offensive chemistry is further along than our defensive chemistry, and that's not anything other than I think the defensive side of the ball, the way our defense is built, it takes some time because you have some guys who are coming from programs or have played basketball a certain way for, in some cases, 4 or 5 years. And it's an adjustment. And so they're maybe not identifying actions as quickly as they're used to. And that, can hurt a defense at times. But with what we've seen the last few weeks and how much we've grown in our communication, like that's the last piece for us, because the communication, earlier you could communicate, the earlier we can execute our coverage, and the less we're in rotation, right? Which helps us with rebounding. So it's all connected. Again, I think our connection defensively is really good, and there were again moments we were, for lack of a better term, overly connected in the Ohio exhibition. Now it's being technical with that and really communicating, so we're not in these overhelps as much as we were. But in hindsight, you love that there's this awareness and willingness to help each other out and be connected. We just got to execute a little bit better. So we're spending a ton of time on that. We have been, since we started practice this summer, we spent a lot of time on offense, because we made some real changes. I think you guys have seen that so far. So it's just as we're building, we need that defensive chemistry to catch up, and I think it will, and it will quickly, and it has, because of how close our guys are. I mean, this is a fun group to coach. It's very much an old school team in regards you can coach them hard. It gets competitive. It's edgy, but it's not personal. That guys just they play hard, talk a little trash. We're competing. Everybody exhausts, empties their tank in practice, and then it's all love after that. And that's fun. Like, that's so much fun to go to practice right now with this team because of their mentality and how connected they are.
Coach, can you talk about how the improvement in the Golden?
Oh, Yvonne, yeah. Sorry. Yvonne's made me look smart because I've been bragging about him for the last few months. I think, listen, and I had to remind myself of this at times. He missed really the entire summer. And for a young player, it's such a critical time, I think. And it's been beneficial for me reminding myself of that and coaching Matthew, who also, although he was in Columbus, I'm able to watch a little bit. He wasn't able to be out on the floor with us. And so that impacts kind of that growth and development. And if you're comparing them on a scale with a freshman who's been there that whole time, I just don't think that's fair. So the one thing I love about Yvonne is he's developed an even greater work ethic and toughness. He's worked hard on his body. He's moving better. He takes coaching really well. And, I think we're seeing a young man grow his confidence like right before our eyes. And so he's played well in both the exhibition and the scrimmage. And I think, his ability to help protect the rim with his size, and he's gotten much better defensively. I've just been really impressed with his growth. And I think there's this runway for him to continue growing as he continues to get in-game experience. So he's really important for our team, and just really thrilled with his development.
Talk about Brandon Noel. I had a chance to see him in the last few years at Wright State. There's times when he can just take over a game.
Well, I think it's the thing I've been impressed with by Brandon is, going from being essentially one of the highest, if not the highest usage rate players on a team, to now playing on a team full of really talented players. And so there's been this kind of transition for him, maybe having to create a lot for himself or dominate the ball, to now where he's figuring out how to play off others. And I think we see his basketball IQ on display every time he's out, with his cutting. He can shoot it, he can pass it, he can drive it, he can post it. He's got great versatility. But, you look at the Ohio game, and even you go back to the Tennessee scrimmage where he made some threes. Like, it just – he can make you pay. He can make a defense pay in so many different ways, and he seems comfortable, playing off of other players, which maybe he didn't have to do in the past. So I think that's been great. We obviously need him to play really well for us, and he's a huge part of our team this year. And I've just been really impressed with, I think his development too in a short amount of time.
I guess they don't have any more secret scrimmages no more, do they?
No, yeah, they're not. Honestly, I'd be in favor if we could. The benefit of the scrimmage, I would love for there to be even another scrimmage or exhibition. I think with as long as our preseason is, if we could have an opportunity to get a third one, it would be good, because the value in the scrimmage is you get to do more. And you get to try different lineups, and you get, it's very much a score, very much competitive spirit, all of that. But there's an ability to coach differently, more practice-like, try different things, play some situations, and being able to do that was really beneficial for us. I wish we could have played another 10 minutes or done some special situations, against Ohio, even with people there. I know there's a lot of complications to that, but I think having an opportunity with how long our preseason is, having an opportunity to play another scrimmage or exhibition, or one scrimmage, two exhibitions, however, could be a great thing.
Good.
All right, guys. Thanks.